Magnificent.
This car distilled the essence of 25 years of Australian motoring performance. Its development was headed by one of the most famous names in Australian motorsport, but this car is not from Peter Brock. Its specially developed six-cylinder engine made this car quicker than most Australian V8s, but it's not a Valiant Charger. This car is Ford Australia's Falcon S XR6.
The Falcon S XR6 arrived in 1992. Bit of a mouthful, that name, the S XR6, because the XR6 was an option pack on the Falcon S. Anyway, it only took about a year. Actually, it only probably took a week for everybody to call it simply the XR6. And that's actually something that Ford did later in the XR6's life. It simply called it the XR6. You got all that? The Falcon S XR6 was the first Falcon to be developed by Tickford Vehicle Engineering. This was a new performance car division in association with Ford Australia, spearheaded by the Tickford concern from the UK. It was similar to Holden and HSV, a partnership between the Australian brands and a UK brand to create higher performance and high performance versions of the standard passenger car range. So yeah, the SXR6, this particular model, was the very first Tickford Falcon, as well as being the first XR6. And the XR6 was the model that lasted for 25 years in Ford showrooms in Australia, right until the dying days of production in 2016. I reckon the SXR6 and the XR6 is a far more special car than many people realise. I reckon a lot of enthusiasts, a lot of car people, even Ford fans, regard this as a sticker pack. But as I'm about to show you, there was far more to it than just the paint and the trim. I mentioned earlier how this car, the Falcon S XR6, is linked to an Australian motorsport legend. That person was Howard Marsden. Howard unfortunately died in 2003. I had the pleasure of meeting him on a few jobs with car magazines, but he was the guy that was looking after Ford's Australian GTHO Phase 4 program back in the early 1970s. That car died because of the supercar scare, but that's a story for another day. Howard also worked for Nissan in the UK. He was actually English by birth. Back to Australia for Nissan's special vehicle division here in Australia, and of course in the years after that he ended up at Ford/Tickford Vehicle Engineering in Australia, and yeah, it was pretty much the mastermind behind this car. What a legend. The XR6 was developed as an all-round family sporting sedan. I mentioned earlier about being a sticker pack. Some people think of that. No, it's not. Tickford put a lot of effort into the suspension of this particular model and other models. The car was slightly lowered. It has stiffer spring, stiffer dampers, and I believe some polyurethane sway bar bushes, which gave the car, without compromising the ride and the noise, it gave the car a little bit more roll stiffness, which is what a performance driver, a sporting driver really wants. Good gear. This is going to be fun. this thing is terrific. These cars were available with a 5-speed manual and a 4-speed auto. The car we're driving today is an auto. Obviously I'd prefer a manual, but hey, guess what? It still goes like a scalded cat. These things were quick back in the day. They were quicker than just about any Australian V8 ever made. I'm not quite sure of the figures, but I think it was something like 15.1 seconds through the quarter mile. That might sound slow if you're a drag racer, but that was pretty impressive stuff for a showroom stock car back in the early 90s. Good bit of gear. How good's this steering wheel? It's awesome. It's not the standard wheel in the XR6, the SXR6. It's an option, factory option from Tickford. It's a Momo, and lovely leather-bound steering wheel. It's just the right size. It feels terrific. There's few better steering wheels for a production car or a performance sedan than a Momo. Also notable, really good instruments, good analog instruments. There was a bit of a digital phase for Ford and Holden in Australia in the 1980s. Thankfully that was over and done with by the early 1990s. So what you got in this XR6 was a good clear set of old school traditional analog clocks. Cool. Here's something you can talk about with your mates at the pub. Why didn't Ford create the Ford XR6 in the early 1980s? There was a Ford XR6 that was actually at Cortina in South Africa in 1980. Ford Australia introduced a fuel-injected 6-cylinder option in 1982 in Australia. I reckon Ford Australia could have got the XR6 badges from South Africa, stuck it on a fuel-injected Falcon here in Australia, and created the XR6 a decade before they did. But they didn't. And here we are. This one's got a sunroof too. I really like sunroofs. Sunroofs make me happy. And how's this red? It's just mesmerising. I'll tell you how much I like sunroofs. Sunroofs are great. I love sunroofs. Of course, the most important part of the XR6, the SXR6, was the engine. This engine was based very closely on the Ford Falcon 4-litre overhead cam 6-cylinder engine, which was introduced in the EB2. This engine was, however, a modified version. It was developed by Tickford in the UK. Most of the work, the dyno work, the power gains work, was done by Tickford in the UK, of course, in conjunction with Ford in Australia. Different cylinder head casting. Bigger valves, bigger exhaust valves, I believe. A modified camshaft profile. The EEC4 computer, I think it was EEC4. Yes, it is. The EEC4 computer was reprogrammed. Higher fuel pressure. It had a high flow exhaust system on it, and all that lifted power from the standard Falcon's 148 kilowatts to 161. It doesn't sound like a lot. It's actually less than 10%. But the mid-range urge of this engine, the extra output it had, really made those little modifications worthwhile. And the finishing touch to this engine was this lovely red rocker cover, complete with the Ford and the Tickford logos. I mentioned before how the XR6 was available with both a 5-speed manual and a 4-speed auto transmission. One other important driveline change for the Tickford XR6 was the fitment of lower differential gears. This car had 3.45 ratio diff gears in it instead of 3.08s or 323s. If you're a drag racer, you'll know what that means. It makes the car go faster. And of course, like every other Falcon, you can option it with a tow bar. It's a long time ago, so the original tyres are now gone, of course, but the XR6 was fitted with a premium Michelin tyre on the specially machined Falcon S rims. Another terrific feature of the XR6 were these front seats. Inspired by the German brand Recaro, these were in fact made in Australia, in Victoria by Paratus. And they're really good at holding your bum in place through the twisties. And did I tell you this one's got a sunroof? I really like sunroofs. So that, folks, is the story of the XR6 Ford Falcon. I'm Glenn Torrens. You've been watching Addicted to Cars. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you in the next episode. Hey Cameron, I think I want an XR6.
Oh,
You've had a couple of these series.
I have.
They're pretty good, aren't they?
I quite like them.
Might have to get an XR6.
You know where one is, don't you?
It's going to be an expensive day, I think. Jesus.